what we have here at Vizsla Royalties is really special. We're a single asset, silver dominant, precious metals focused royalty company with our principal assets on the flagship Panuco project down in Sinaloa, Mexico. We trade under the symbol VROY on the TSX-V as well as on the OTCQX. Making some forward-looking statements. So the investment thesis for Vizsla Royalties is really in three buckets, I would say. We have the project development. Now, the Panuco project located in Sinaloa, Mexico, is a feasibility stage project. That feasibility study was released earlier or later in the year of 2025. But we're rapidly going towards production, and now you would say, as a fully financed project after the convertible notes issuance in November, that it is really a permitting story, and we're targeting first silver in the second half of 2027, so rapidly advancing towards that first pour. But beyond that, there is a large amount of exploration upside on the district. There is, to date, I believe 93 kilometers of known vein strike that has been identified, of which only 28% of that has actually been followed up with. So lots of exploration upside happening just within haulage distance of that proposed mine plan, in addition to this larger 17,000 hectare property which Vizsla Royalties owns those royalties over. And then, of course, there's the timing component. There is really a scarcity, like as you can see by the size of our panel here today compared to the other ones, of really not that many silver-focused companies out there today advancing towards production. So the story behind Vizsla Royalties, this was spun out of Vizsla Silver, the mothership, about 2 years ago. So all the shareholders of Vizsla Silver would have received one share of Vizsla Royalties for every share of Vizsla Silver that you had, as well as a warrant. We were then listed in August, and later that year, in June 2025, we actually went and acquired all of the remaining third-party owned royalties that existed on the project and consolidated under Vizsla Royalties. So today, we have, on this map here, I'll show you a map some of you may be familiar with. In the light green there, you'll see we have 3.5 NSR on the Silverstone concessions and a 2% NSR covering the green concessions. Now, together, this covers 100% of the feasibility study mine plan outlined by Vizsla Silver last year. But the really important thing here is that the 3.5%, which is our bigger asset here, covers 100% of Copala, where mining is set to initiate. Now, you can see just by looking at these that smaller Copala resource on the lower left-hand side there, it extends laterally along strike as well as further at depth. So lots of exploration upside just within that area, as well as certain intercepts, which I'll follow up on later on the presentation. Over in the west. So for those who are a bit new to the project, Vizsla Silver's Panuco asset is down in Sinaloa, Mexico. It's about an hour drive from the city of Mazatlan. Now you can get direct flights from Vancouver every day, and two highways that run directly through the project. These highways are, the important thoroughfares for the government, for the military, so they're highly maintained, and it helps us with security on the project. There's also two power lines that follow these roads that go right through the project. And so as you'll see from our site layout, one of the big differentiators for us at the Panuco project is that these power lines run directly over where we're going to have our processing facilities. So no linear infrastructure has really been proposed for this asset other than some small pipes going to the tailings facility. So the location is really unrivaled in terms of its infrastructure. It is a past producing district, and that's really been a huge component for the permitting of this project. This project is, in the permitting process, I guess I'll just say that we initiated the permitting process last February and have had some very positive dialogue with Semirnat, the group that issues these permits. And they're not looking at this as a greenfield, virgin ground mining project. They're really seeing it as an extension of the 450 years of historic mining that's been ongoing. And so we're excited to see that hopefully these permits can come in perhaps even as early as mid this year. So yeah, like I said, we're rapidly advancing towards production, significant exploration upside. I'm just going to continue on a little bit here. We've had, every year the company has drilled approximately 100,000 meters and converted about 100 million ounces into its follow-up resource. We now are in the stage where we're looking to do much more conversion. We have it, over the last year, we've advanced 900 meters of development for our bulk sample, fully permitted, fully funded test mine. So we're now actually entering that first year of Copala where mining is expected to begin. where we can then, once permits land, take that production, put it on surface to de-risk the initial mill startup with roughly 500,000 tons of material on surface. But in addition to that, we're also going to have three drill bays with 2 drill rigs actively turning to do some efficient conversion of that low-hanging inferred material to bring it into the mine plan early in the mine life. So just looking at that feasibility study, it was an exceptional study. It really puts the asset within probably the first 2 or 3 largest single asset producing mines in the world once in production, looking at about 20 million ounces of silver equivalent per year in the first 5 years. That's about, it's quite a bit more than we saw in the PEA, a little bit shorter mine life. And that all comes in at about an all-in sustaining cost of $10.60. So again, looking at that $103 silver price today, it's a healthy margin. But how does that translate into Vizsla Royalties? So the 3.5% NSR covering those Copala concessions translates into roughly 9,300 silver equivalent ounces on average, or sorry, I should say 9,300 gold equivalent ounces. And I say gold equivalent just because most of the royalty companies typically look at the gold equivalent ounces. But that translates into about $40 million in annual post-tax cash flow per year. And so as we translate this company from an earlier stage development company through to a cash flowing company, an imminent cash flowing company, we expect that our valuation is going to be reflected by something like a cash flow multiple, which, I looked at my bank reports this morning and is somewhere between 15 to 20 times. So you can do the back of the napkin math yourself, and it looks pretty good for where the VROY can go from here. Of course, it's really good to know that the operator of the royalty company, which we have here, is well funded. Today, after the convertible notes issuance of $300 million that Vizsla Silver did last year, they sit with roughly 2 times the cash requirement to bring this project into into production. So very little headwinds ahead of us in terms of financing side to get this project built. Here's just a quick look, a little bit deeper, kind of the site layout. You can see right there that the power line is coming directly over the processing facility, all within a very small footprint. Again, helping us with that permitting process because we're not looking at we're about 300 meters between the crushing circuit and the portal, so we're not really having to build a ton of roads, no linear infrastructure. Really just makes it a clean play. Of course, we've got tons of exploration upside. We got drill rigs turning on the western portion of the district, where you see the lower polygon on the left, as well as several intercepts that we made last year in the east there. So certainly lots on the exploration side. And I'll just finish here quickly because I'm running out of time, just on a development timeline. So all the check marks are things that we accomplished this year. The permitting is, like I said, in process, and that really puts us in line for our first silver coming up close in second half of 2027. So I'll be sitting over at the booth in the left-hand corner of this, of the MIF here. So thanks, Peter, and thanks to my panelists for taking the time, and let me know if you have questions about the company. Thank you.